sweetheart fruit. You'll notice the clusters aren't quite as dense. These fruit are probably still 2 weeks away from being fully ripe. This is very unusual this time of year. Normally, last year, it's June 12th. Normally, last year, we were shipping fruit on the 23rd of May, which were sweetheart fruit. They're typically the first fruit to come in. Now it's, because the winter was the coldest winter in over 100 years here in Florida, it delayed the flowering to the beginning of April. Normally these trees flower typically from the middle of January to the middle of February, but due to the unusually cold weather, the flowering was actually the beginning of April. Once the fruit is set, it typically takes about 90 days for the fruit to ripen. You'll see over here that we have some air layers on this sweetheart tree. These will see here. Actually, this fruit is actually ripe, believe it or not. You can see that. You see where the bumps in the skin have smoothed out, and it has that characteristic heart shape to it. That's why we call it a sweetheart. So this fruit is actually ready to eat. But I can't say this for most of the other fruit here. Most of the other fruit are still quite a ways away from being ripe. But you notice the size of these fruit compared to the size of the Mauritius. Let me grab a Mauritius fruit, and you can see. What we have here are Mauritius lychee fruit. These should be ripe in about another 10 days. Notice that these Mauritius form in fairly dense clusters. You can see that the fruit, an indication of ripeness is everybody thinks that lychees are red when they're ripe. Well, this isn't necessarily the case. The fruit, the way you tell that the fruit are ripe is when all these little spines and bumps on the skin become smooth, and then even if the fruit is slightly green, it's ready to eat. Now, you'll notice here that the fruit that are exposed to the sun color up a lot faster than the fruit that are in the shaded area of the tree. This is quite typical of Mauritius fruit. You'll notice that they form in quite dense clusters on the panicle, especially if there are other varieties of fruit around. Now, we have Mauritius fruit here. You'll notice that sometimes the fruit gets so heavy that you actually get breakage of the branches. These trees are probably about 16 years old, and the sweetheart fruit, we don't have as big a crop this year as we had in the past, but normally the sweethearts are pretty consistent bearers. You'll notice the Mauritius lychee, in the presence of how dense these clusters are of fruit on this Mauritius. This is typical when you have Mauritius trees in the presence of other varieties of lychee. So if you are thinking of planting out Mauritius, it helps to have another variety such as the Brewster or the Sweetheart. This has to do with the timing of the opening of the flowers. Typically the first flowers to open on a Mauritius tree are the male flowers, followed a little later on by the female flowers. So you have to have receptive stigma, receptive female flowers in order to get fruit set, but you also have to have pollen. Alrighty, well, I guess that about wraps it up. I'm keeping my fingers crossed here that in about 2 weeks we'll be harvesting these sweethearts. Now, I think here, let's go ahead and eat this one just so we can see. Now, to eat a lychee, what one does is one peels the skin off the top like this. Boy, look at that lychee, man, that's a beauty. And let me peel one of these Mauritius fruit. You can see the difference in size. The Mauritius has a big seed in it, but look at those. Doesn't that look delicious? Let me taste this. Perfect. Tastes like a lychee. And it's you can see the small seed inside here. Let me see the difference in the size of the seed and the amount of flesh in the sweetheart fruit. It's very dramatic. But boy, is that good. That's why they call it a sweetheart.